cybersecurity expertise through internal or external resources.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that, Pantelis. Let's shift gears a little bit now and look more at recent times, and we'll shift away from COVID a bit. But let's look at some of the new threats that basically have come online or have come to the fore in recent times. Ioannis, what are some of these new threats that people should be aware of, people should start thinking about, etc.?
So yeah, I think we have already established that phishing and ransomware are exponentially rising in the recent times.
Right.
And the aim is to intrude and breach users or networks with the final aim to get revenue, get money, and exfiltrate data that they can, publish in dark web. And again, they want to get money out of it. So mobile is rising more than ever, mobile vulnerabilities with all these applications in app stores. People need to be aware what they download on their mobile devices, especially in games and like new software ease of life applications that are not well, tested prior to their publishment. So, I mean, it's mostly being aware again. This is where I drill down the most, because when you're aware, you won't be easily fooled. So in terms of the public, and now in terms of at an enterprise level, we've seen mostly the public and governmental sector being targeted. It has been a time where adversaries wanted to exfiltrate confidential data, either for geopolitical reasons or propaganda or whatever their motive is. And then we've seen a lot on the finance sector and the healthcare sector. We had various examples like the NATO data leak. We had the Starlink dish hacked. We've had common Microsoft vulnerabilities like the proxy shell, which was a hassle for many security analysts and engineers. The Cloudflare attack was quite a thing, and the SolarWinds one had a huge impact. So yeah, and again, relating something that I just remembered was the Costa Rica attack, the ransomware attack, which they attacked the Ministry of Finance, and they've exfiltrated all the import and export business of Costa Rica. And Costa Rica declared a national emergency, which is a first for a ransomware attack.
Okay, excellent.
So yeah.
Pantelis, any other examples or threats that you see?
Okay, I will sound a little bit dystopic on this because what we have in front of us is a dystopic future. Some of these threats that Ioannis mentioned are asymmetric because of the scale that they can be deployed. Some of these attacks, and I will mention some others that we need to have in mind. We've seen sophisticated social engineering techniques. Some people, they would say these techniques are only in the movies, but we've seen them in reality. You all sensed and came across fake news and misinformation. This is a growing problem, and it's a threat for organizations that they use the internet. The ransomware, we expect that it will continue, and it already evolves. And I will open a parenthesis here. In the past, ransomware was extortion. So you find something that you can ask for ransom because the party, the organization needs the data, or they don't want to leak this data. In the new versions of ransomware, as ENISA, the European Organization for Cybersecurity is reporting, we've seen double and triple extortion. And people, they experience and witness such a way of extortion because GDPR is one of the main laws in EU. So when you attack the personal data, the first thing that the hacker will do is to ask for the ransom to let your data, but the double extorsion is they use the, let's say, the threat that they can leak. And because of the Article 33 of GDPR about data breaches, you have to notify and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a hassle. That's a double extortion. And now we have triple extortion. So the first two, plus when they encrypt, they go to your clients and say, look, this organization has been attacked and your data has been leaked in the dark web, etc. So that's triple extortion. And that's the evolution of such threats. Okay, we have the data exploitation and thefts that Ioannis already mentioned. One of the threats that it's coming up, the deep fakes. They are using algorithms and machine learning to impersonate, so they can put words in your mouth and my mouth and say that, and they claim that that's real. PsyOps, psychological operations. Now we are talking about brainwash, the so-called wetware, which is the human brain. They can use techniques to brainwash the public. Polluting the infosphere is another very serious threat. So imagine that the internet has a severe percentage of fake and misinformation. So every time you search for something, this may be not accurate. That's a very real threat. And of course, the metaverse. Metaverse is gaining traction. Everybody can create an avatar and claim that they are, presidents and millionaires and whatever. That's a real threat, which is a hybrid. In cyber, it can affect the physical world as we know it today.
Excellent. Ioannis, anything else to add to kind of wrap things up on this question?
No. New threats, I think it's gonna be IoT and OT, mostly mobiles. So
okay,
yeah.
Excellent. Okay, let's shift gears now a little bit. I mean, we're talking about all these threats coming online, and it seems like hackers and cyber terrorists are always one step ahead of everyone else. So let's talk about now what governments, regulatory authorities, and organizations, companies, etc., can do as a whole to be more proactive and better prepared to deal with these issues. What sort of things can they do, Pantelis, to react to this?
Okay, as we all know, and we have experienced, hackers and generally any adversary don't play by the rules. That's a fact. On some occasions, they breach for profit, and it's a very profitable business as it turns out. We have experienced cyber mercenaries with high technical capabilities and with no motivations. I mean, okay, the financial gain is important, but you cannot understand and profile some of these mercenaries. So they can bring any organization in severe crisis because of this high technical capability that they have. In some occasions, it's a matter of revenge, disgruntled employees, ideologies, some hacktivists that they can put an agenda in front. We've seen victims of cyber attacks claiming afterwards that the attack was not actively identified or contained prior to the ransomware execution, which means that the attacker are within the networks and they are performing all sorts of movements in organizations' networks. We believe that each stakeholder, governments, authorities must perform their due diligence, continue to perform due diligence, identify the context where they work, what are their capabilities, what are their strengths, establish some gaps, maturity discrepancies. They need to shift gears and establish an effective security governance, a proper organizational structure, roles and responsibilities, policies, objectives, strategies. All these things, they are known, and I believe that the organizations should enhance their approaches to these sometimes soft skills that they need to develop. They need to invest in the capabilities, the capital, the time, the people, processes, the systems, the technologies that they embark. And most importantly, I believe they should work on the security culture, the relationships, the perceptions that they are inside the organization, what is expected from them outside, the principles, the values that they want to push forward. Of the extent of the use of vendors, third parties, all these relationships must be put under control and regulated by the organization. And finally, identify all those vulnerabilities and the single point of failures and the risks, so they invest in the appropriate measures as we mentioned earlier. My personal view is that the strong security governance, which entails a very good risk management framework, is a must and is directly connected to every organization's growth agenda. Inadequate security and ill cybersecurity risk management could result in no growth, but most important and even worse, failure to survive.
Excellent. Thank you, Vangelis. Ioannis, go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree. A strong IT governance it is. Talking about governance is one thing, and absorbing such a governance is another thing. So I guess companies and organizations need to assure that they portray the strategy in a way that they can adapt to it and they can actually work on it and apply it, let's say, not just follow the best practices and that's the way it is and it should. I need to see what I have in order to see how I can do it, Other than that, I'd say governments and regulatory authorities, they should establish, let's say, ecosystems through communication and dissemination pipelines, so they can enable, let's say, alignment at all levels between different industries towards more efficient and effective in terms of both proactive and reactive handling and response on such cyber attacks. And, as cybersecurity is a broad domain, it requires a blend of measures and expertise. So a well-structured, documented ISMS and a good governance structure and its appropriate maintenance and delivery to, let's say, the rest of the personnel of the involved parties, and accompanied with implementation of solutions and monitoring tools like IDSs, IPSs, EDRs, which are fancy lately, and so forth. Those companies, they must make sure what Vangelis stated. They must make sure that they allocate budgets towards both in-house or outsourced solutions if they don't have the capacity and services. as it's a highly refined and constantly evolving technology. They need to adapt to the methodology towards ensuring the proper posture, and preparedness. So I'd say, yeah, risk management is a must. Totally agree with Pandelis. And another term that we've been hearing lately a lot is the zero trust from CISOs and CIOs. That's a good approach. So yeah, and as we've seen with the new ISO, they will, introduce the intelligence part, the intelligence technique that organizations will have to, get a grasp. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. We haven't touched upon technology much. We have heard mention of AI and a few other technologies here and there, but let's delve deeper into this subject. And the question basically is, how have you seen the role of technology evolve during the past decade when it comes to combating cyber attacks? And any thoughts on the use of AI and blockchain technologies, for example, to beef up cybersecurity? Pandelis, you want to get us started with that one?
Okay, technology, as you say, has evolved greatly in the recent years, Matteo. Security technology is not evolving in void. It evolves around the same security principles and the defenses which can stop the attacks. In my point of view, the power of AI to analyze patterns and detect anomalies would be the leading technology as we move forward to detect and stop cyber attacks. Of course, in combination with skilled individuals, because always the human factor will play a significant role. And I believe we will see more surveillance technologies as we move forward. Of course, as you said, blockchain has proved that it's a technology which is very versatile, and I'm sure the R&D behind the technology will produce and deliver to the market more products that we can use in security.
Excellent. Ioannis, anything to add there?
Yeah, totally agree with Pandelis in respect to AI. It works as expected if it's fed the proper input in the model by us, it was made by us, so it needs the proper input to work well. So redirecting to what I said before, having proper alignment streams and, threat digestions and pipelines for effective bidirectional communications and updates on, let's say, IOCs and AOCs, as well as security news for new zero-day vulnerabilities and all that kind of thing. It all boils down to having the skilled, dedicated security analysts to feed the model, So yeah, I guess AI is gonna be the thing we're gonna see moving forward. Now, in respect to blockchain technologies, I'm sure they will be adapted in various domains, both digital and network infrastructures in the near future. As I think it's going to be mostly in the finance sector, as it facilitates mostly the integrity and confidentiality aspects. So due to their complex, cryptographic mechanisms. So it ensures that that transaction is going to be legit and it's going to go on, So yeah, that's my opinion about it.
Okay, excellent. Now, moving to our last two questions, let's look more towards the future now and kind of get a forecast from the two of you as to, what are some challenges, what are some innovations that you see coming online during the next, 2, 3, 5 years. So let's start off with Pandelis. What do you think will be some of the main cybersecurity challenges faced by organizations moving into 2023? I know many of these will remain the same that we have been experiencing, but what do you see as the main challenges for the future?
The word challenge is a norm, and in every manager and every people dictionary nowadays, and especially the cybersecurity challenge is real. I would underline the new legislation, the stringent inspections that we see by authorities. It's something that we will see in the future. So more and more regulators encompassing cybersecurity minimum requirements in their regulations, guidelines, financial authorities, telecoms, ISPs, regulators, critical infrastructure, NIS. Now we will have the NIS2, the DORA directive, which is in the financial sector about the resilience. So there are a very demanding, I would say, new pieces of legislation that are coming up. So that's the one thing that I see. We see that the technology that was introduced in organizations during that pandemic or a little bit before, and the struggle of competitiveness and the organizations that they wanted to compete to be abreast of new trends. But at the same time, the investment in security must be proportional. So another challenge that you need to keep up as you introduce new technology and new transformations, let's say, the real trick will be to balance with appropriate security. Otherwise, you will suffer, as we already mentioned. Another challenge is that we need fresh eyes on the infrastructure, on-premise and the cloud. It's like own a car. You are only interested to drive it from A to B without taking care of it. So you buy expensive infrastructure or you pay cloud services, but you believe everything works, and that's a problem, because when you enter with your car in the network, in the traffic network, all sorts of threats suddenly are around you. So you say it's hazardous, and the same thing with the internet. So you cannot ignore, otherwise you will crash. And many organizations, while they are connected and they enjoy connectivity, they can suffer big time by the threats. So I believe that if you put your infrastructure blindly without any defenses, that would be a real challenge. So more and more things are connected, more threats will be in your plate. Threat monitoring, intelligence detection, and a robust mechanism to respond, that would be the answer to this. Another challenge is the convergence of cybersecurity and regulatory compliance that I already mentioned. So far, the organizations, they have long been considered two separate issues. So regulatory compliance is often prioritized because it's something that you can be penalized and is more urgent. So AML and anti-money laundering and other GDPR and all these things, they are put in front. However, cybersecurity is not a priority many times. It's something that is put aside. I believe that this will come first. And we've seen that with a lot of inspections by the regulators, they are more interested in your measures rather than if you comply with the regulations. I believe that operational resilience is another challenge. We've seen that the trustworthiness of platforms and systems that are online, they are put into question. At the moment, we don't have a single measure of cybersecurity. So if you ask me if this platform is secure and you ask me how much, it's very difficult to answer. So I believe that the resilience and the mechanisms that you can measure, it's something that it would be a real challenge for the organizations moving forward. And the only single tool that we have at the moment is RISC. Cybersecurity must be measured in RISC. Both security and security assurance, following the new regulations, will be a new challenge for developers. EU, the European Union, is moving into the Cybersecurity Act so that you build the necessary measures by design and by default, so that we, the consumers, enjoy the minimum security baseline. That's all from what I believe in this the coming years.
Excellent. Thank you, Pandelis. We have one question left for Ioannis to tackle, but before getting to that question, if anyone has any questions for our panelists, drop them in the chat, and we will cover those. We have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions max. But if you have any question for them, drop them in the chat, and I will you ask those questions as soon as Ioannis is finished with this last question that we have here prepared for all of you. So Ioannis, any noteworthy innovations to combat cyber attacks that we will see more of in coming years? Can you give us some examples as what innovations you see coming online?
Yeah, actually, can I redirect to the previous question? Because
yeah, go for it.
I think I just want to add something, now that we've established that this misconception that was going on for the past decade, that, cybersecurity is only cyber and, it's more of a management thing. The challenge is, to make the rest of the people aware that it is crucial for organizations. I mean, in the US, they've adapted to this. I mean, ISO has become a CISO, they're moving forward. Another challenge that I'm thinking is, all these multi-vendor infrastructures and, the engineers and personnel trying to, find a centralized way to monitor and, have eyes on the network, being proactive. It's difficult, when you have multi-vendors, and I think vendors have realized as well, and they're trying to, move forward towards more integrations and automations within different companies. And, we've seen also the acquisitions going on. So that's another thing. I mean, they're trying to move the way to, provide a more standardized and uniform domain, So yeah, that's about the previous question. So could you please repeat the last question?
Yeah, basically, are there any noteworthy innovations to combat cyber attacks that we will see more of in coming years, technologies or systems, etc.? Anything that you think should be highlighted? Yeah,
as I've said before, there is an emerging threat landscape on IoT and OT devices. I speculate that we shall see a rise in IoT attacks. So because they process the most vulnerable and the most data security threats, given the fact that more data is sent between the systems, breaches are most likely to appear. So I reckon that the IoT industry is going to be another favorite key target for the adversaries to invade, mostly to exfiltrate and propagate those threats to users and the companies. So I think we're going to see a huge advancement in the enhancement of that security perspective. Let's hope we won't see attacks in IoT in big industries, as that's going to be a bit terrifying. It's like quick signs for chaos and war. So let's hope it's going to be some few attacks on IoT at home users, which the impact is, not as much. For sure, then encryption will be enhanced as we're seeing the rollout of supercomputers. So encryption must advance as well to facilitate, confidentiality and integrity of data. What I've said before for the previous questions, we're going to see synergies and acquisitions between different technologies and vendors. So it's somewhat relative to what I've said in the previous question. We're going to see them, cooperating, collaborating, respectively, to enable more effective alignment of defenses and security solutions. Lastly, I'd say there's going to be a further development in an enhancement of security operations centers and maybe analysts as a service towards tackling those sophisticated attacks due to the lack of capacity and maybe the lack of budget from small to medium organizations. As new regulatory obligations will be a part of their scheme, I guess they might redirect to such managed services and supervision services from subcontractors. Yeah, so it's going to be mostly the SOCs and the EDRs and the network security monitor tools that will be enhanced towards more effective detections. Yeah, that's my humble opinion.
We have a question that just popped up, so let me throw this one out there for you guys. But this is more about advice or tips to offer to our listeners. What advice do you have for a small business to improve their cybersecurity? You want to give your top 3 tips, each one of you, as to how a small business can improve their cybersecurity? I know that you could spend hours doing this, but let's boil it doan to 3 tips. Pandelis, you want to go first?
Okay. What we have seen from small, medium enterprises that they want to approach cybersecurity and they don't know where to start. They can always consult international frameworks. Some of these frameworks are already available for free, especially the American standards. So you start basically with identify your organization, as I mentioned earlier, where you stand, who are your customers, your stakeholders, what they want from you, and especially if you can predict the adversaries, who can be your threat. And a good start is to have a risk assessment. Establish your measures, your existing measures, and see what are your, let's say, points of failure, where you can fail first, and try to identify. There are quite big variety of solutions in the market. And I'm sure Ioannis will second me with actual technical measures that they can take, but take care of your perimeter, take care of your endpoints. What you show in the internet is visible to many, and yeah, that's all from me. There are many things, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I mostly agree with Pandelis. So it's all about mapping your stance, let's say, minimizing the public surfaces. And from a technical note, I'd say always use 2FA. And try to, especially for the email service. I've seen many organizations that have public email service, and I don't get it. Why? Because we've seen the proxy shell being such a hassle in the last 2 years. And of course, password policy. And the last one I'd say, because there's a huge list, awareness. That's it, awareness. Adaptation and awareness and being, updated.
If I'm allowed to,
go ahead, Pandelis.
Do a comment here, because some people, they confuse the terms sometimes. It's a nice word, cybersecurity, but cybersecurity is a small fraction of what we call information security in general. That's why I mentioned earlier, you need to know what you are protecting. And most of organizations, they don't know what the value of the information they have in hand. So once you evaluate your assets, what you try to protect, from there on, you can do the steps. And from our perspective as security professionals, we always, a very easy distinction is to know your physical world and what is in front of your screen in terms of information and where you keep them, and what's behind the screen that most of the times you don't know because it's too technical and your IT guys know better. So we need to take care of everything in front of the screen and behind the screen. So it's a physical and digital world merged together. That's the one distinction and one tip I wanted to give to the participants.
Excellent. I think that's a good point for us to wrap up. Thank you very much, both Pandelis and Ioannis, for this very insightful presentation. I think everyone will probably leave with plenty of food for thought and things that they have to implement within their organizations. I'm going to hand it over to Alan to wrap things up. Thank you for allowing me to moderate, and until next time.
Yeah, thank you to you, Matteo, for moderating, and thank you to the panelists and Ioannis for today's session. And a big thank you to all of you guys for joining us for today's Cybersecurity Trends and Predictions webinar. We will be following up with some more details and next steps on professional cybersecurity certification and training. We'll include a link to the recording for this session. And then if you're interested in more of these webinars, seminars, tips and tricks, please remember to follow us on LinkedIn. Have a great day, and thank you to all of you today. Cheers.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.